Hello, everybody. Good. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this press conference with Ministers Marci and Randy Boissonnault for an announcement to support Pride organizations. I'm your moderator, Chelsea Nash, and with that, I'll just pass it over to you, Minister. I believe we'll have 5 or 6 minute statement followed by questions after that. So on to you. Thank you.
Well, thanks very much. Hello to everyone here today and to all those watching at home. Bonjour à toutes les personnes qui sont ici aujourd'hui et tous ceux et celles qui nous écoutent chez eux. Bonne saison de la fierté, tout le monde. I would like to wish everyone a very happy Pride season and one that ought to be spent in safety and security. This year, while we are gathering to show all of the colors of our community, we're also thinking about the ways that we can keep ourselves and our community safe. And this is also top of mind for the organizations here with us today that are actively involved in planning Pride festivals in Ottawa, Toronto, Montreal, and across the country. We have to keep people safe. Canada is a country that leads in the world in terms of 2S LGBTQI+ rights and our government's defense of those rights. Now, here's an interesting piece for folks in the room. 10% of the world's prides take place in Canada. 10%. We're a smaller percentage of the global population and a small population, but mighty, of the economic part of the country, of the world. But 10% of the world's prides take place on Canadian soil. And they're a big draw for people from one part of the country to go to the other part of the country. I know folks, including my own partner David, are like, we're going to Toronto Pride. Whether you're coming or not, I'm going to be there because he wants to go and see his people. And we want to go and do that together. And so it is for people from around the world who want to come to Canada to enjoy Pride and all that our country has to offer. And, you know, being welcoming and inclusive is a fundamental Canadian trait. It's who we are as people. And we demonstrated our commitment to my community, our community, 7 years ago in a most tangible way when, for the first time in Canadian history, with the sitting Prime Minister, we raised the Pride flag on Parliament Hill. Think about that. Only 7 years ago this month. And in 2016, I was appointed as Prime Minister Trudeau's Special Advisor on 2S LGBTQI issues, and my mandate was to work with organizations across the country to promote equality, protect the rights of members, and address discrimination against them. And many are still in the sector working hard and doing great work. Et ces objectifs sont toujours les mêmes. De vraiment travailler avec les communautés, c'est une préoccupation centrale pour notre gouvernement. Et la conversation sur les besoins de la communauté, c'est une conversation ancrée dans qui nous sommes en tant que gouvernement. And our government has been really proud with the progress and the work that we've done, including implementing an inclusive blood donation policy, banning conversion therapy, launching the very first 2S LGBTQI+ action plan, my friend Marci, coupled with an initial investment of $100 million. Most of that money going to community organizations, and on our watch, making sure that international organizations got funded because we're all in this together. And yet, friends, we've seen a rise in attacks and violence, vandalism and suppression of queer books, the obstinate refusal to raise the Pride flag, and the hatred that 2S LGBTQI+, young, less young, as old as me, and older, face on a daily and weekly basis just by looking at the comments feeds in our social media. In Edmonton, Evolution Wonder Lounge, vandalized many times to the point where the owner, Rob, was just going to shut up shop until the community rallied and said, no, we need you. Please stay open. Recurring vandalism of a Pride mural in Grand Prairie, Alberta. York Regional Catholic School Board voted to ban the Pride flag from being raised during this month, and Uganda's president signing into law an anti-LGBTQ hate piece of legislation. Donc, mes chers, these are not isolated stories. These are incidents that are on the rise, and 7 years ago, we were ebullient, we were elated, we were surprised that we could raise a Pride flag on Parliament Hill. And we had many years of that, and the pandemic happened, and something has taken hold. Post-pandemic. There is an anchor, there's a rancor, there's a rage, there's an anger that we have to step up against and defend against. And I'll tell you why. Because 40% of the queer kids in my city, 40% of the homeless kids in my city are queer kids. Why? Because when they come out, their straight parents kick them out, simply for being gay or trans or different than the other straight kids. And that is not an isolated incident across this country. And so we cannot lose any more lives. and we will not cower in fear. With that, I would like to turn to my dear friend and honorable colleague, the Minister responsible for women, gender equality, and youth, to say a few words, but more importantly, to make a really important announcement. Marci.
Minister, Randy, thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for being here today. I also want to acknowledge that we're gathered here today on Algonquin territory. So, not too long ago in Toronto, this was Toronto Pride, a 24-year-old gay man was punched, and he was kicked, and he was beaten until he was unconscious. In Brockville, a bomb threat was called on Children's Drag Story Time, an event that was happening. And then someone set fire to the library's HVAC system. On the SkyTrain in Vancouver, a queer couple was followed and was harassed by a stranger. Those are just 3 stories. Those are just 3 instances. Et dans les mots d'une femme atteinte locale. I've been aggressively harassed several times on Ottawa streets, she says. I battle anxiety as I leave my apartment, obsessing with how I look. If I look out of place, it might provoke someone to lash out. This vortex of hostility and fear makes it challenging for me to trust strangers in my own community. As a member of parliament that represents Toronto Centre, which includes the gay village, I hear firsthand from community all the time. A constituent said to me just the other day, Marci, this pride is different. We've never seen this amount of rage. We've never seen this amount of hate directed towards us. It's terrifying. The data from Stats Canada notes that in 2021, there was a 64% rise in crimes against members of the 2S LGBTQI+ community. Why do I mention these stories and this data? Because now more than ever, as allies, as leaders, as parents, as friends, and as Canadians, we need to wake up and understand. We need to wake up to the reality that 2S LGBTQI+ people are facing today. And that includes meaningfully engaging with queer and trans Canadians. Now is not the time for any sort of performative allyship. Now is the time for action. It's Pride season, which means that folks here today are hard at work. They are planning Pride festivals that celebrate the progress that Randy mentioned, that's been made over the years. But they've told me that the thing that is on their minds the most is safety. Because as Pride festivals get larger, which is a sign, it can be a sign that our society is becoming more and more inclusive, at the same time, small but increasingly organized, hate-fueled groups have started targeting places that are intended to be safe spaces. And if we really look back at any social justice movement, it's clear that there's always backlash from people that assume that because we're moving toward a more inclusive society, that somehow it's about their rights. Somehow it's about their rights being infringed upon. And as many activists have said before, when you're accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression. Think about that. Think about that the next time you feel uncomfortable about the way that someone chooses to live, just to live their life. And maybe ask yourself where that discomfort comes from. And that brings us why we're all here today, to make it absolutely crystal clear that our government will not stand by while hate and violence seek to reverse decades of progress. Which is why I'm announcing support for Fierté Canada Pride to immediately create an emergency fund for increased safety and security at Pride festivals right across Canada. This means $1.5 million, which will support roughly 65 Pride festivals and events across our country. That's rural, that's urban, that's everything in between. This funding will go to festivals in our big cities, in our towns, in rural regions to ensure that they have the resources to keep their communities safe. We're able to move quickly to get this funding to Pride organizations because last summer we launched the plan that Randy mentioned, the 2S LGBTQI+ Action Plan. We laid the groundwork to directly support the community, including right now, in its time of need. I want to close by speaking directly to queer and trans Canadians. No matter how loud, no matter how intimidating or hateful voices might get, your existence, your lived experience, your joy, your contributions will never, ever be erased. Not now, not ever. Je veux terminer en remerciant les incroyables personnes ici avec nous aujourd'hui. Fae, your voice, your activism are appreciated and desperately needed, always. Sherwin, Toronto, so many others around the world are so grateful for your work. Toby, thank you, friend. Thank you for your guidance and your wisdom. And of course, Julie, you're here and you're leading. Thank you for being a leader, both as president of Fierté Canada Pride and in so many other spheres. Your work is seen and it's appreciated. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Julie. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. For those of you that know me, I wear my heart on my sleeve and I tend to get emotional. And so thank you for your words. Bonjour, Ministre and Ministre Boissonnault. Pour nous avoir invité ici aujourd'hui, votre invitation fait reconnaissance par le gouvernement de l'urgence et de la gravité des défis auxquels fait face à la communauté dans notre pays. Today I stand before you not just as the president of Fierté Canada Pride and the founder and treasurer of Fierté Timmins Pride, but as a passionate advocate for equality and inclusion that has witnessed firsthand the power of love, acceptance, and celebration within our Pride communities. But I've most recently seen the ongoing instances of hate creep in, threatening to undermine the great strides that we've achieved. FCP, Fierté Canada Pride, is more than just an association. We're a united force of 65 Canadian Pride organizations representing festivals and events from coast to coast. Our collective mission is clear: to strengthen Pride organizations and support the diverse 2S LGBTQIA+ communities that we serve. We are not just one of the largest associations of Pride organizations in the world. We are a beacon of hope, resilience, and solidarity. And I speak to that from a very personal place, where when I came out in 2005, my first space was Toronto Pride. My first safe space with my partner was Toronto Pride. However, in recent times, our united front has faced an unprecedented wave of hate that knows no boundaries. But let me tell you, we will not be silenced. In Timmins at this very moment, my community is proclaiming the start of Pride Week and raising the vibrant Pride flag of unity and acceptance in celebration of our, 10th anniversary of Fierté Timmins Pride. I reflect on a decade of progress, of celebration and unity, where we have stood strong side by side, embracing our uniqueness and finding solace in the loving embrace of our community. Our events have always been safe, inclusive, and a testament to the power of acceptance. However, due to the escalating hate within our community, including targeted incidents against our events for the first time in 10 years, we've been compelled to develop a safety plan and allocate a portion of our limited, very limited budget to implement necessary safety measures to protect our community. And sadly, our story is not unique. Our member Pride festivals within FCP have been deeply affected by the unsettling surge and rising of anti-2S LGBTQIA+ hate. This alarming wave of hatred demands our immediate and unwavering attention. C'est pourquoi notre présence ici aujourd'hui est si importante et est remplie de passion et de détermination. Nous venons ici pour allumer un feu en chacun de nous, un feu qui alimentera la lutte contre la haine, l'intolérance et la discrimination, et ouvrira la voie à une société qui embrasse et célèbre la diversité des individus 2S LGBTQIA+. L'annonce aujourd'hui appuie une réponse immédiate à la montée de la haine, mais nous savons aussi que ce travail se poursuivra au-delà du festival de cette année. FCP continuera de travailler avec des partenaires partout au pays, mais nous comptons aussi sur tous les niveaux de gouvernement, pas seulement fédéral, pour jouer un rôle dans la lutte contre la montée de la haine, car personne ne devrait être victime de haine pour son orientation sexuelle, son identité de genre ou son expression de genre. Minister Ian, Minister Boissonnault, we stand before you as advocates and activists and as a united community thanking you for hearing our requests. The increasing levels of animosity mean that many of our organizers, who are often volunteers, lack the resources and training required to tackle this issue. Today's initiative will empower us to assist Pride festivals with practical training, essential resources, and capacity building. With these tools at our disposal, we can collectively respond to the rising tide of hate. But let me assure you, in the face of rising anti-2S LGBTQIA+ hate, our community will never back down. FCP stands shoulder to shoulder with Pride festivals across the country to support and uplift 2S LGBTQIA+ individuals. We are committed to creating safer spaces for everyone, fostering acceptance, and celebrating the diverse identities that make our nation very strong. In the face of adversity, our community has always risen, stronger and more resolute than ever before. Nous avancerons main dans la main, épaule contre épaule, jusqu'à chaque festival de fierté soit un symbole d'amour, d'acceptation et de fierté inexhiblable. I am honored to pass the mic over and introduce you to Sherwin Modeste, Executive Director of Toronto Pride.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Minister Ian and Minister Boissonnault. It's hard, but it's good. As someone that was born in a country where it is still a criminal act to be in the same gender relationship, as someone who is now leading the largest pride in Canada and one of the largest prides in the world, it is an honor for me to be here and to be part of this announcement. Pride Toronto contributes over $250 million annually in taxable income. They contribute over $550 million to the GDP, created thousands of jobs. This week, Pride Toronto launched its Months Festival, where we're going to be seeing over 10 stages on festival weekend. And throughout the month, over 475 artists, many of which are Canadians. We are going to be seeing over 2 million people from across Canada and across the world descending in Toronto to celebrate. For some of them, this will be the only time they will get to be their true and authentic self. Because once they return home, they're going back to the closet. This year have been challenging for us. We have seen an increase in cost in many areas, and I will just share a few. Our insurance in 2022 went from $67,000 to over $300,000. That is an over 300% increase. Security. Our paid private security went up by over 25%. Our paid duty officers went up by over 150%. This year, for the first time in Pride Toronto history, we have to explore additional security measures for our trans and dyke rallies. These are rallies. This is not where we should be investing in security, but this year we have to. We welcome today's announcement. It speaks volume to the commitment of who I will call my friends to the 2S LGBTQI+ community. I know that our community welcomes this and looking forward to the continued relationship and working together. And with this, I'll hand over to my friend and colleague, Toby.
Thank you, Sherwin. My name is Toby Whitfield. I'm the Executive Director of Capital Pride and have the honor of sitting as a board member on the Board of Directors of Fierté Canada Pride. Capital Pride takes place at the end of August and will welcome over 150,000 people to Ottawa for those celebrations. You know, this past February, we hosted our Winter Pride programming and saw a level of hate that I've not seen in more than 8 years of being involved with Capital Pride. Drag performers were harassed, plans were announced to try to shut down some of our family pride programming. The level of hate that we saw online was at an all-time high. We had protesters that tried to interfere with family-friendly programming and intimidate attendees and show up with signs that were disgustingly transphobic and homophobic. But as you've heard, this is not unique to our experience here in Ottawa. And as festival and event organizers, safety of all those involved in our events, our community members who are coming to them, our artists and performers, our volunteers, that's a huge priority for us. People deserve to be safe when they come to Pride celebrations. People deserve to be safe when they celebrate Pride loudly and proudly. But this will require increased community resources, training for volunteers, safety, and infrastructure expenses. And these increased costs and the work associated with training our volunteers and preparing to host our events this year is not something that Pride festivals can handle on their own. And so today, Minister Ian, Minister Boissonnault, thank you for being here to support festivals and events in every part of this country, and I would say for moving very quickly on this request for support. At a time when hate is on the rise, it is more important now than ever that partners, allies, corporate partners, governments in every part of the country stand with the 2S LGBTQIA+ community. So thank you for doing that today. And as Pride organizers prepare to welcome millions of people to communities right across this great country, we also know that our work will continue beyond this Pride season. Prides will continue to work with community groups, activists, and other partners now and into the future to combat anti-2S LGBTQIA+ hate. And one such leader is Fae Johnstone, who I'm happy to introduce and welcome to share about today's announcement. Thank you.
Thank you, Toby. Hello, my name is Fae Johnstone, and I'm the president of the Society of Queer Momentum. We are a new queer and trans advocacy organization working to accelerate social and gender justice for 2S LGBTQIA+ communities. We were born out of a need to counter rising hate and to challenge governments on every level to do more to support our communities. As you've heard already, all across this country, we are witnessing a staggering rise in anti-queer and anti-trans hate that is jeopardizing much of the progress that we've made. From increasing incidents of police-reported and hate-motivated violence since 2018, and that's just the tip of the iceberg, as many in our communities are hesitant to bring forward concerns to police, to online rhetoric equating queer and trans people with pedophiles and groomers, to protests from small towns to big cities targeting queer and trans events and spaces. This hate is not an anomaly, but rather a global effort fueled by regressive and hate-motivated groups striving to roll back the progress that we've made. This is happening in the US, in Italy, in Ghana, Uganda, the UK, and indeed right here at home, and we must confront it head on. I know from personal experience the price of hateful rhetoric. In the past year, I've been targeted time and again by anti-2S LGBTQI+ groups for being a loud, proud, and stubborn trans woman. I've received death threats and encouragement to suicide, And in March, because I was included in a Hershey's Canada campaign for International Women's Day, I inadvertently unleashed one of the most significant cancel campaigns that has ever been targeted at a trans person in Canadian history. For having my face on a chocolate bar over 72 hours, I was inundated with literally thousands of hateful messages, DMs, mentions, and emails. My privacy was violated. My old name was released publicly and videos shared with thousands of people. I had pre- and early transition photos of me shared and turned into horrible caricatures and memes. I still can't say anything on social media to this day without hateful rhetoric coming into my mentions. Due to very real concerns for my safety, Hershey's Canada equipped me with security guards who followed me 24 hours and stayed outside of my home for 7 days straight because we were worried that a far-right anti-queer trans group might target me. Imagine what it's like to wake up every day worrying that your address might get doxxed or that somebody might come out to an event that you're speaking at and protest. Imagine worrying about the risk of that turning violent. More recently, Rebel News painted the target on my back for taking a speaking engagement at a Women's Award Gala in Regina. They published 10 articles and 4 videos in under a fortnight and launched a petition to fire me from a speaking engagement at a Women's Award Gala. They sent a reporter to Regina, and that reporter found me in a park and outed the hotel I was staying at, further increasing concerns for my safety. Combined with the Hershey's incident, these experiences have left me traumatized and scared. It's hard knowing that there are thousands of people out there who hate you simply for being who you are. But what's happening to me highlights just how dangerous our social environment can become for queer and trans people. Rising hate comes at a devastating cost for our mental health, our ability to exist in public spaces. And I am extremely grateful to Minister Ian and Minister Boissonnault for a timely response to the concerns that came forward from queer and trans pride organizations. Au nom de l'association Queer Momentum, je les remercie pour la réponse opportune et aux préoccupations exprimées par les organisateurs et organisatrices des fiertés au Canada, et ces fonds contribueront grandement à soutenir les fiertés locales et réassurer nos communautés dans un contexte de montée de la haine. Nonetheless, I have to stress that this is just the beginning. Hate is on the rise and our communities are scared. It speaks volumes that we're at a point where we have to come here and announce unprecedented safety precautions and to thankfully receive support from this government. But we shouldn't have to be here at all. We've come a long way in the past 2 decades, but our communities still experience social, health, and economic disparities. And we must recognize that even the progress we've made is precarious. As Dr. Hetty Fry said in the House of Commons last week, we must be on our guard as parliamentarians and act for queer safety. And so I would invite all levels of government, municipalities, provinces and territories to model themselves after what our federal government is doing. But I would encourage everyone to accelerate their efforts to address rising hate and support queer and trans communities. We have a window of opportunity to act before it gets worse, and that window is shrinking. Thank you.
Okay, hopefully we have time to go and do a little bit of a Q&A. I think, Dale Smith, you had a question. Go ahead.
How long before this money can roll out? Because government programs can often take 6 months to a year.
Not this time, Dale. No, not this time. The money will be flowing immediately, extremely quickly, because Fierté has the infrastructure set up. We got the ask, so this will happen really quickly. As Sherwin said, Pride has already started in Toronto. Toby mentioned Capital Pride at the end of August, so you see what Pride season looks like. But Sherwin will be able to apply real quickly for what he needs, and we're confident that he'll have exactly what he needs. So this is much sooner than later.
And there was nothing in the budget around this, so what is this coming out of in terms of allocation?
The action plan. So the 2S LGBTQI plus action plan did in fact lay that groundwork, and there was some previously committed funding that we had as well, and so we grabbed it, Dale. And that's where it's coming from. If you need more on that, I'm pleased to have the department get you more details. Thank you. You're welcome.
Rachel Aiello, CTV News.
Hi, Minister Ian. The fact that prides are under higher threat now than in years past, even since when your government took office. What do you attribute that to, and is it an indication that the Liberals haven't gone far enough?
I've said before, Rachel, that I wish I could legislate empathy. Our government has done more than any other government. I used to be sitting in your spot, and as a reporter, I can tell you that because I know what I've reported on in the past. And now holding this portfolio, the fact that we have a 2S LGBTQI+ action plan, the work on conversion therapy, the work on the blood ban, the ongoing work throughout government. This is a 24/7 cross-government job. What I will tell you is that this is about listening to community, and it's about acting right away. We couldn't wait. You've heard the stories from everybody sitting here today, how desperate this situation is. Fierté presented a plan that was co-authored by many of the folks sitting up here. We took a look at it. They asked for a certain amount. We're giving them that amount.
Just clarifying there, I'm hoping you can speak to a bit, why do you think we are at this moment now where prides across the country are having these increased security risks? What do you attribute to being behind this rise?
There's a lot of hate out there. You know, I've been thinking a lot about this. I glance at my social media, and, you know, I was at Toronto, in Toronto last week, raising the pride flag there, and there was a protest. There's a lot of othering happening now. I don't know exactly why it's happening, but if we look to the States, we see why. It's vulnerable communities. The 2S LGBTQI+ community is a vulnerable community. And if you add the intersectionality piece to that, it gets even worse. I'm not here, Rachel, to prognosticate as to why it's happening. What I do know is that we need to stand up, and that's exactly what we're doing.
Rachel, on your questions, because they're fair questions, right? Like, how far do we go? When do we stop? How much do we need to do? And the answer is we never stop. The answer is there's always more to do, and we're going to keep doing that work. And I remember I asked the federal officials to put together a timeline from like when Quebec passed the human rights legislation to protect what they called homosexuals at the time, LGBTQS people, in '79, all the way to 2016. And there were a few good things that happened throughout the years. And then there were 10 years of nothing. And that was the Harper government. 10 years of nothing. Not a single advance on the rights of the people on this dais and the people that I love and the people that are part of my community for 10 whole years. Fae had no protection before we passed the legislation in 2016 to make sure that they, and Charlie, 12 years old at the microphone, who said to the media, is this legislation actually going to protect you? And she looked right at the reporters and she said, this means that I get a job. This means that I get an apartment. This means that I get to actually be part of society. And so this is the result of a rise of ideologically motivated violent extremism that has been taking place and taking root across the country. This is going to require a whole of government response. And thank God that we got money into Marci's, into our whole of government LGBTQS action plan so that we could move today. So we're here because we take this seriously, and we're going to keep working for the LGBTQS+ community every single day.
Dylan Robertson, Canadian Press.
A question for the two ministers about the Momentum petition. There's a few things in here that the action plan didn't mention about a special representative for issues within Canada, work towards misinformation that targets these communities, an envoy for LGBTQ issues abroad. These weren't in the action plan, so I'm curious if you individually as ministers support what Momentum is asking for. And I was also wondering if Sherwin would like to comment on the need for an LGBT envoy for issues outside of Canada, if that's something that's important.
Sherwin, did you want to go first?
Sure. So, again, I think that Canada on a whole has done a good job. I would not say a great job, a good job in terms of advocating on the global sin. Is there a need? Yes. But one of the things that I've also heard loud and clear is that we cannot be directing how the developing world should be doing their business. And one of the things, when I speak to my friends in Uganda, in the Caribbean, they've said, are there resources that we can direct to them so that they can help to do the work that they're doing on the ground? And I know that this government, under Minister Ian, has done this. And so we welcome this. However, to answer your question with all of this, yes, there is a need, and hopefully at some point in time, we will get there.
And that work is definitely being done. It definitely is being done. With regards to the other parts of your question, this is about Pride organizations, this announcement, completely leading as to what they need right now, what they need with regards to emergency services and training and support, as Julie mentioned. So this is being led by them. Fierté has an excellent costing. It costs out exactly through different tiers as to what different Pride organizations will need, what smaller ones will need as opposed to larger ones. As I mentioned, urban, rural, everything in between. This is about the community leading. This isn't about government telling community. This is about government saying, here is the money, and please go forth and use it the way you need to use it. With regards to momentum, agree with exactly what Fae's doing, what she's saying, what the team is saying, and this is why the 2S LGBTQI action plan is evergreen. I remember when we launched it alongside the Prime Minister last August 28th, we were very, very adamant about that word evergreen, ever-changing, because it's about what the community needs. A large part of that plan, although the 75% of the $100 million goes to grassroots organizations, is about disaggregated data to understand who we're serving in this country, who people are, and what they need. And so as we look at those numbers and understand those numbers and understand that a third of those, third of Canadians who identify as 2S LGBTQI plus are 25 and under, we're starting to formulate what we need to do as a government, and we'll do so hand in hand with the community.
Sherwin, David and I will be at Pride, so we can't wait to see you there. And Dylan, to your point, I mean, I think it bears going back a little bit and looking at history, because it was the Equal Rights Coalition in Vancouver in either 17 or 18 that got hot and heavy because they felt that we weren't doing enough as a government. And so we sat down and I said, okay, look, don't abandon the conference. Let's come together. And within a month, when we get back to Ottawa, we're going to sit down with the then Minister of Foreign Affairs, Chrystia Freeland, and we built a plan that led to $35 million plus $10 million a year ongoing out of global affairs, now administered through Equitas, through the Active Fund, that's literally going to human rights defenders around the world. And I know it's working because I saw them when they came to Canada in November, and it was a beautiful thing, and they're saving lives. And if you want to take an example of what an embassy can do with just $25,000, talk to Danilo from Dialogo Diverso, who, when LGBTQ refugees were crossing the border from Venezuela into Ecuador and nobody was helping them, he got together with 5 people, 5 volunteers, and said, let's create something called Mi Casa Fuera de Casa, my home away from home, and helped LGBTQ family refugees to settle in Ecuador. He got a $25,000 grant from our government, and guess what's happened 3 years since? It's in 4 countries. They've helped settle 5,000 families. It started with a $25,000 grant from the government of Canada. And so do we need an envoy? Do we want an envoy? Absolutely. And they should be very focused overseas, because guess what? Your domestic minister for LGBTQ2IS+ is right here. And it's me. And it's Mona Fortier. And it's Seamus O'Regan. And it's the Prime Minister. It's a whole of government issue.
Thank you. I'm not the smartest person. I'm a bit confused if you meant we need an envoy or the cabinet is the envoy. I'm sorry. But
No,
I had a
you asked
different
two
question.
questions. You asked about a domestic representative.
Yes.
We got that covered. But I like the idea of an envoy because look, the United Kingdom has an envoy. The United States has an envoy. I think Jessica. Jessica's here this week, and we've got others that have done this. And so you asked if I like the idea. The answer is I like the idea.
Good. My follow-up question.
And you are smart, by the way.
That's on record. I'm curious, it's an open question to the ministers and the participants here today, the guests. I'm curious what you make of the Conservative leader's comments last week about Pride being all about freedom. He mentioned that includes, quote, freedom to be judged by personal character, not by group identity. I'm wondering what you make of those comments and what the Conservatives need to be doing during Pride Month.
Can I take a crack at this real quickly? Thank you so much. We are raising the Pride flag here on the Hill on Thursday at 9 a.m. sharp. And I would invite Mr. Poilievre and others to join us in doing that, standing with community. We're inviting young people. We've got seniors. We've got leaders that will be there. And promptly after that at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, we will be holding a drag brunch. And I would love for Mr. Poilievre to be at that as well.
I led off a question earlier this week going back to the fact that it's only been 7 years since we raised the Pride flag on the Hill. And then Monsieur Deltel stood up in response and said, the Conservative Party is always going to support 2S LGBTQIS plus rights. Let's see. And let's hope that everybody that is in town for, who really cares about our issues, including members of the Canadian Pride Caucus. And look, Dylan, the time for allies is long past. We need champions. And so empty words and slogans and buzzwords that kind of get around the issue, are you coming to Pride or not? Are you going to march or not? And are you going to hide behind members of your caucus or are you going to show up and represent? That's the real question.
Are you going to support or not?
Exactly.
Action.
Yeah, I think thinking about Pride Festival and organizations across the country, our message to all political parties is to show up and meaningfully engage with 2S LGBTQ2IA plus communities in every part of the country. When we see a rise in hate against our community, we want to see political parties take action. We want them to support the work of Momentum. We want them to put out statements condemning that violence. We want them to come to Pride and meaningfully engage beyond just saying that they support our community. But actually, we want to see tangible action on the part of all political parties, and I would say of all governments at all levels across the country. Today we have the support, and we're very pleased with the support of the federal government, and we need more support from provincial governments too right across the country as well.
And that being said, I would like to put out a personal challenge to all the federal leaders, the Prime Minister, the Leader of the Opposition, the Leader of the NDP, the Leader of the Green Party, the Leader of the Bloc, to show up in Toronto on the 25th and tell the world, tell all of Canada that queer lives matter, that trans lives matter, and walk hand in hand, put their partisan politics aside, and walk hand in hand with us to show their commitment. Words are nothing, action. And as my colleagues are saying, the fluffy words, it means nothing to us anymore. What we're looking for is action. So this is my challenge to all the major political leaders, both federally and provincially.
And if I can just add, I think, we have seen this terrifying rise in hate, and it is a multi-government issue. It's not just on the federal government. I'm the first to say there is more that every level of government can do on rising hate. But I haven't seen a condemnation of that rise in hate from Pierre Poilievre. I have not seen him speaking out about attacks on drag events, on queer and trans communities, and I think now is a time for reassurance that he is on our side, and for him to speak out loudly and proudly to show up at Pride and to demonstrate that his party, which half of which voted against banning conversion therapy not that long ago, is going to come out for our communities, because there was a lot of fear in the air. And when I hear language like anti-woke, that scares me, because it's often code for anti-queer and anti-trans.
And if I could just add to that very quickly, I think it's really important that all governments speak against the hate. We cannot lose any more youth to suicide. Those rates are astronomical because they cannot simply be who they are. We need to create safe spaces for all folks in our community, and that includes our youth. Let them be who they are.
Okay, we have one question from someone phoning in. So Jillian Piper, Global News.
Hi, folks. Thanks for being here today and doing this announcement. I wanted to talk a little bit about the timing of this announcement. So obviously it's for Pride as the season's unfolding, but we had seen sort of a rise in hate prior to this. You know, U.S. groups who were tracking it said that in January of 2023, we saw more hate than in 2022 and in 2021. So I guess, why was there no government funding then? And what happens after Pride season when realistically the threats will probably still continue?
We've been working really hard on this since March, and then followed up in May with the 2S LGBTQI+ Secretariat and Canadian Heritage, as well as the Department of Public Safety, who met with advocates. I have as well. And just to identify the needs of the community. This has been ongoing. This didn't just happen all of a sudden. And as I said, after today's announcement, this money will flow quickly. As far as what happens next, we will never abandon the 2S LGBTQI community. This is why there's a ministry. This is why we have a cross-government approach. We are all in.
Yeah, I'd add, Pride organizations met in March at our annual conference and identified this as a priority leading out of the winter, where we did see a continuing rise of hate in many communities. And since mid-March, we've been engaged in very positive, fruitful conversations that have led us here today. And so I thank you for jumping on it and getting us through to today's announcement. And, you know, Fierté Canada Pride is ready to support prides in every part of the country in the coming days to get this funding out to communities where they're needed. We're ready to move very quickly on this.
I'm going to send it back to Rachel Aiello, CTV News.
Thanks. I just had one follow-up, just specifically on this $1.5 million. It's my understanding that Pride organizations would like to see this funding be more than the one-time 2023 Pride funding. Are you able to commit that money will be there for Prides for security in years to come?
We'll continue, Rachel, to hear from community and understand what community needs. And so this is a response to what is needed right now. Fierté Pride has done an excellent job, as you know, including the people on this panel, to write out a proposal to make sure that it's led by community. And as community speaks, we will listen and we will act.
And if I can add to that, I think the challenge is that we need to ask all levels of government to participate in this and to support their communities. This is not only a federal issue. So provinces need to come on board, provide that support, and you know, even locally, like we need local support, we need provincial support, we need federal support from all angles. This hate is not going to go away tomorrow. There's a lot of work to be done, so we need the support to move this forward.
Okay, I think seeing no more questions, that concludes this press conference. Thank you.
Merci. Merci beaucoup.